Welcome to Creatacast with your host, David Welch. Today's show is going to involve creative writing networks and the power of social media in today's writing. And also, I'm going to get a little into where Creatacast is at and what moves we're making. So, I was planning on doing the show earlier. I'm still waiting for people to submit their work to me, and that just hasn't been the case. So, I, as a host, got to figure out where the ball's being dropped, and it's most likely with me. The good news is we can figure it out. You know, moving forward, I'd like to ensure that we get that problem nipped in the bud. Right, so the email that I want people to submit their work to is my personal email. It is dwelch, like Welch's grape juice. So dwelch9627 at gmail.com. I want the format being in Word or PDF, Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins preferably. Kind of like if you were in college and you're submitting a paper. If you're a writer and you haven't been to college yet, that's okay too. That's just something as a point of reference I'm making. I'm more than okay with you submitting still in the format that I discussed. The reason for the font specifically is due to readability. Like, I need to be able to read your work. If it's in a very italicized font, then I'm not going to be able to decipher what's being said, especially if it's a PDF format. So also, if you would like to read your work on the air, and what you can do is you can make a little audio clip for me of you reading your poem, attached the words of the poem, or the fiction piece, the creative nonfiction piece, or even the skit or play piece or dramatic monologue, whatever it is you're working on. I'm more than happy to take it on and read it. At this point, I'm even willing to take some very stylistic and creative essays, something that I can still read pretty quickly. I mean, generally, I would love flash fiction. I am a huge proponent of flash fiction. I love it. My first book of fiction has a lot of flash fiction in it. So, let's bring on the fiction and creative nonfiction. You know, if it's done well, it can be a very rewarding experience. Now, when you do submit to Creatacast, the intention is to publish a digital magazine. That's the end game. Right now I have an idea of the format that I want to use. I just need enough people submitting their work in order for me to make that digital magazine a reality. And it'll be a monthly magazine. So it'll incorporate those who have been selected to be part of the weekly show, as far as who I read on Fridays. If I only have 3 submissions, I'll read all 3 submissions on the air. No problem. But if I'm inundated with like 20, 30, 40 submissions, and I'll choose probably a handful, and those who I do choose make it in the digital magazine. Trying to ultimately partner up with a few big websites. One of those being Realistic Poetry. Love that website. Love the content they do. I love their Twitter. I always respond in their Twitter. It's just something that is a fantastic prompt and community of poets that are always contributing, and I love that community. So it's something that I'm really striving to align with and partner with to move forward as a host. So for those who are listening in the radio waves with creative writing major of poetry, and you're a realistic poetry contributor, and you have your work submitted with them, go ahead and submit it on to me too. That way I can read some of your work on the air if you want it read. Of course, you can simply listen to the show without really ever having to be read on air. Or if you want to submit and try and make the digital magazine without having to have your work read on air, that's fine too. Whatever it is you want as a writer, please dictate to me in the email. That way I can be 100% clear of what you want with your work if it's chosen to be either read on air or contributing to the digital magazine. So, each magazine that I want to submit or work towards will have a theme. So this theme for January is New Year, New You. So if you have poetry, flash fiction, whatever have you, even if it's, like I said, a creative essay, then, let's get that ball rolling. Let's get the New Year, New You, and let's see what you can do with it. Now, speaking of New Year, New You, for me, it's really a matter of buckling down on my creative writing process. I was in a groove for a while. I got to admit, I was in a really good, smooth groove when it came to where I was at with my writing, how much I was writing. Life comes in and sometimes kicks you square in the nads. And unfortunately, for me, it's done so. So my writing hasn't been the best. But that's what I love about the different writing communities that are out there. And one of the powers of a writer is really in your creative circle. If you have no outlet, and let's just be frank here. If you're a writer and you have no outlet to where you can put your work out, whether it's a blog or whether what have you, you tend to, and this is at least true for me, you don't stay in it. You don't stay in that creative zone for a while. So, fortunately, my creative zone has improved to and incorporating podcasts. So, this is part of my creativity spectrum that really helps me move forward in that realm without necessarily putting down 5,000 to 10,000 words like I'm supposed to every week. And I say supposed to because that's been my magic numbers for me, what's worked for me in the past. Right now, that's not working. So what's not working with me as a writer is that I'm allowing outside factors to dictate the terms of my writing, and it should be like, I'm 100% game for putting down 6,000, 7,000 words in a given evening if I'm given if the environment is set for me, if I set the environment correctly. Just like any creative artist, like if you're a tattoo artist and you commit to a time frame, regardless of outside factors, that's what you've chosen as your time frame with that person whose skin you're doing work on as your creative time. Now, they have a tattoo artist have the impetus of getting monetary satisfaction immediately. They are happy with that, arrangement, and us for writers don't have that. We kind of have to keep producing as a writer to get to the point where we do make money with it. So that is our art. Our art is in the magic of creative writing in the realm of the word. So it's important to align yourself and mold into a creative network, to have that backing, to have that support, and to be encouraged to keep moving forward as a writer. And the hardest part is you have these wonderful writers, people that have produced amazing work in the past, but currently they're not writing because their art hasn't made them a living yet. Or they have life that comes in, swoops in, and alters their ways of being, which, ultimately can be psychologically damaging, or it could be psychologically uplifting. And it really is something that we can understand as a writing community. Because not everybody stays in the zone, and they don't stay in that comfortability zone usually for a very long time when it comes to their writing. Now, there's older writers out there that'll be like, dude, if you're a writer, you're going to write regardless. And that is true. You know, if you're a writer, if you're somebody who's creative, you're going to find ways to stay in that zone and create, because it's what relaxes you. It's cathartic. It's a way of weeding out frustration. It's a coping mechanism. Whatever it is for you, fantastic. And if that's what keeps you in the game, great. But at the same time, some of us, you know, have mechanisms or things that occur to people in real life that take us away from our creative mode. Now, I have found ways to somewhat mitigate this by keeping notes in on my Samsung Notes, and I keep writing prompts and ideas and script ideas. Sorry for the yawn. And I keep that mode interesting, you know, and I have a checkoff list of things that I achieve, and it's all about putting words on a page for me. For others, it may be a certain word count. It may be completing a chapter. You know, it may be really working through a time frame at home, or it's like, I always sit down and write for X amount of time after making dinner. Well, if that's your routine, great. If you found a good writing area, a place where you can comfortably think and do your writing and do your work without feeling the pressure of, hey, I got to go handle the kids, I got to take out the garbage, I got to go clean this, I got to go do that. If you have that zone, then by all means, work within that. But more importantly, find a good writing community in your area or online that helps you stay in the game too. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we get so used to our own prompts, our own method of madness, that we kind of have a formulaic way of writing, and sometimes we don't have that feedback that is critical as a creative writer to improve upon our craft. And sometimes you need that really brutally honest feedback to say, hey, you're not where you're not really hitting with me as a reader, or you're not your word choice is very poor, or you know, your mechanics are terrible, or you know, whatever it is that you need improvement upon. Or hey, you have fantastic dialogue, but you know, horrible at setting up the plot, or you know, I mean, yeah, those are tougher words and pills to swallow, yes. But if you can do it in a tactful way to say, you know what, hey, I don't necessarily agree with, you know, these plot lines. You have, you know, continuity issues. You tense jump. You have, you know, a character that started off with a scar, but you never mentioned the scar again. Whatever it is that you can improve upon as a writer and re-immerse yourself in the craft, then that's what we need. That's what I'm talking about in as far as a writing community. For me, that has been Twitter. I was never a Twitter person, still barely a Twitter person, but because of Twitter, I have been able to communicate with people I would have never otherwise communicated with, and have had feedback to say, you know what, hey, we like your podcast, but here's what we're not hearing. Here's what would be valuable to us as a listener. So that's valuable feedback to me. Or, hey, you know, I bought your book, I read your book, and some of the stories fell flat with me. Well, okay, what stories? Why? What was wrong? That way I can have that dialogue and say, you know what was missing? You know, and that allows me to go back to the drawing board and say, you know what, hey, if I'm creating stories that aren't hitting home with readers, then that may be true for most readers. You know, now, I mean, I love to be cheeky and think they're crazy, but sometimes I'm the crazy one. It's okay. But, stick to a writing community. Get in one, whether it's at your university, whether it's at your high school, whether it's your local library, or whether it's online in a forum. Now, there are a lot of creative writers out there. I've met people who love the game of Dungeons and Dragons, and these people are very well researched. They're highly intelligent, highly capable storytellers and creators, but they do it in a format that's not necessarily the same as you and me as far as creative writing. They don't necessarily put it in the same way, but they are passionate about it. It's just like people who are very passionate about a genre, or they're very passionate about whatever it is they're passionate about. It could be Harry Potter, it could be Twilight, it could be whatever it is. People have something that they are so freaking immersed in, and they know everything there is to know about it. For me, that is the Predator universe. Like, I live and breathe and sleep in the Predator universe. I've read John Shirley's Predator Forever Midnight. I've read Steve Perry, the writer, not the singer. I've read his, AVP books. So there's a good chunk of Predator novels and books and stories that I've decided to immerse myself in. But I also love DC Comics. I love The Incredible Hulk. And it's what we choose to really focus our time in on, is where we're at. I was huge into the classics for a while. So I read Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Books. I read, Mark Twain. So there are a lot of modes we can be in. I've read Alexander Kent's Midshipman Ball Theo series, and I read a crap ton of Hornblower, and I've read Master and Commander, and I read the Sharp series, and then you get into historical fiction. Whatever series you're in right now, whatever mode you're in, even as a writer, whatever mode you're in, whether it's YA, fantasy, romance, whatever it is, and wherever your niche is, great for you. But live in that community and seek some feedback from your community. Now, if your feedback is, I've got a steady following of readers, then by all means, stick to what you're doing. And if you've found your niche and you've got your base of readers, maybe ask yourself, why am I not on the bestsellers list? Where am I missing in regard to expanding my readership? So that's something you may be able to think on or get feedback for. And it's thrilling. It's absolutely amazing and thrilling for a not as well published or not as well immersed creative writer to have somebody who's prolific in their writing group. So you may be a station above, but you have that invaluable lesson to teach junior writers, and that's what really Creatacast is meant for, is those who are on the cusp of becoming published, or they're on the cusp of getting after their dreams and validating their dreams. Because it's crushing as a creative writer leaving college or leaving high school and getting those first string of rejection letters. You're like, well, what's wrong? Mechanically I'm sound and yada, yada, yada. And then it's what it comes down to is the amount of feedback you're getting and from whom, and probably an editor. If you have a solid editor, somebody who's taken a look at your work and putting it together mechanically and soundly and with a strong cadence, or with a good ear and eye to cadence, then you're going to be sought after, So it took me a while to get that. It took me a while to find a writing community I'm comfortable with and who provides me the most valuable feedback. And I look for the feedback that destroys me, like, well, I didn't like your story because of X, Y, Z. Well, tell me why. If you can give me a good reason why my story sucked, then you please deliver it to me. Or if you have very good feedback as to, maybe word choice or maybe a line break didn't work, whatever it is that you're seeing on the page and reading and understanding, fill me in. That's great. I love that feedback. Some people don't respond well to feedback, but it depends on the type of feedback you give. If you're a creative writer and you respect other creative writers, then give valuable feedback. Like if you send me a poem that's 10 lines, I'll probably send you an essay back to show how much I care about the value of your work. I teach English, so I do that regardless. But at the same time, I enjoy doing that for people. I will read somebody's first 10 chapters of a novel and let them know what I really think. And I've actually been asked to be to write the foreword of a couple books, and I chose not to purely because I wasn't really drawn into the story. I loved the person who invited me to write their foreword, but when the story you read has continuity issues and it's just falling short for you as a reader, then it's hard for me to endorse. And I've had to tell people that, and that has done one or two things. It has, one, brought them back to the drawing room, or they simply believe in their product and they move forward regardless, with somebody else to write their forward. And that's okay. As long as you have that respect of giving them the respect as a writer, and if they do well and they sell well and they end up going somewhere with that, then you made a mistake, and that's okay too. Because I believe that there are a lot of people out there reading submissions, reading content, reading work to try and discern whether or not you make it in their publication, and they don't always make the best judgments. Sometimes they're looking for a specific trope or an idea or something that fits well with all the other stories they get. And if yours is great, but it's off the mark for what they're looking for, sometimes that is valuable feedback. So if they say, hey, we want creative work in regards to the concept of time, and you deliver something that, yes, it is in relation to time, but it's more of a horror short, or it's more of a valuable lesson on, scenery and character building, whatever have you, then that may not necessarily be what they're looking for their publication at the moment. I've had it where I've had a publication that I even forgot about reach back out to me and say, hey, are you okay with that group of poems you sent us being published now? Or, hey, you submitted a short story to us 11 months ago. We didn't need it back then, but we're asking you to submit that work again so we can get it in our next publication. Is that okay? And that's absolutely rewarding to hear. It's also rewarding to hear people outside your friends, outside your, I call them the community, because the community, which is your family and friends, are going to say, okay, awesome, fantastic, it's the greatest thing I've ever read in my life. You've written the great American novel. But then turn around and get feedback from the other members of the writing community, and they're like, nah, bruh. nah, it's not working with us. So you have to step outside of that immediate community of family and friends. You have to really commit yourself and give yourself to a group of creative writers and creatives that will provide you valuable feedback that you can take back to the drawing board and really, really commit to reworking. Now, not everything that somebody gives you feedback on is going to be, is going to affect your style. You may have just a certain cadence that they didn't like and they weren't gelling with, and that's okay. Seek the publications and the creatives that respect what you're doing. And just like a painter, not everybody likes every painting or every film an actor does or every song an actor or every song a singer sings, but they do have their favorites. They do have the ones that really stick out to them. And if you can do that for someone and you can alter a life, change a life, inspire, and motivate, then you've achieved what you set out to do. Whether or not you feel successful, whether or not you feel you've risen to the occasion as an author, because you're never going to be satisfied. I'm telling you right now, you're never going to be satisfied as an author. I mean, you may be very happy with your benchmark that you achieved, but if it's not a consistent benchmark, or if you're not superseding that, or you're not getting better, or you don't feel like you're getting better, and your feedback is telling you that, then yeah, you're going to want to change things up. You're going to want to be reborn as an author. You're going to be reinvigorated as a creative genius that comes in and steals the show again. We see that with very good singers over time. You know, we fell in love with Metallica of the 80s and the early 90s, but when they got into the late 90s, we were like, what the hell happened to you guys? You guys cut your hair and your music sucked. But then they had a resurgence. They had a reemergence of, you know, good sounding music, and they had a great film that really fucking rocked and kicked ass. And they have a forever sound that's always going to be immense and popular, right? So, and we have writers that do that for our community. We have the Stephen Kings, we have the Dean Koontzes, we have the Spielbergs when it comes to film, we have the John Williams when it comes to composition, or Danny Elfman, or, you know, whoever it is that your creative sensei is for you, and whoever that may be, and whatever mode you enjoy being in, whether you enjoy writing westerns like Louis L'Amour, or Danny Elfman / Tim Burton type, who love a certain cast of characters and you love a certain theme, then by all means stick to it, whatever's working for you, right? And that's one thing that I really wanted to get across. Of course, Creatacast is going to be a show where it's going to be dominated, and I want this to be true. I want this show to be dominated by others' voices or others' work other than my voice and my work, because it's selfish as a creative to have this platform and not share it with the world. You know, this platform can be as big as we ever want it to be, and it's not even a monetary thing. If I never made a red cent from doing this, I'd still do it. It's like writing. I'm still going to do it regardless. But if I can build revenue with podcasting and having my show, and I can put that into a scholarship that later moves a creative writer somewhere in the world forward, that is something else I want Creatacast to be. I want Creatacast to be this immense podcast and publication where, you know, I'll get donations, I'll get the revenue from downloads, or whatever it is that I get, whatever it is that makes this show financially sound, will go into a fund that becomes a scholarship fund. And if I get a certain amount for that scholarship, like 5 G's or even $500, then I will be able to award that to someone and present that to someone, and still do my show and still move forward. And I will know that I contributed to somebody's educational process. Whether you're a high schooler, a senior in high school, or a 40-year-old person going back to school for the second time or third time, whatever have you, that's okay too, because the scholarship, once I get to that echelon, will be available to everyone: grad student, high school student, college student, non-student. If you want to apply for the scholarship for, to help with your kids' tuition or something, and you're in your professional creative, then, by all means submit for it. But I will have some specific criteria. I think I will narrow that down. But as of right now, once I get to that point, that's what I'll do. Because, yes, I am motivated by money. I do have to feed my family. I do have to move forward with my dreams and goals, and I will do that. And if Creatacast isn't that forum for that, then that's okay. Because I can take the proceeds and the money from anything, any donations, anything I get from Creatacast, Patreon, or whatever have you, and dump it right into my scholarship fund, which would be ideal for me. That would be cool to say that I founded a scholarship that ends up becoming something that is profound over time. Something that continues to give back to a community that has given me so much and given me purpose, right? So let's go back over a couple things we went and discussed. We talked about where I want Creatacast to go, what the submission guidelines are, where to submit, which is dwelch9627@gmail.com. Went over finding your writing community, sticking to that writing community, and finding the value of being in the writing community that's not, or that is outside of your friends and family. Because that community, like I said, is the community. It's the community that's always going to be like, oh, okay, great, yeah, fantastic. But the community that really gives you the most valuable feedback is the community that doesn't have that attachment to you as a person. They have attachment to your work, right? Another concern of mine that I've seen in the writing community is a dominance of self-publication. Now, there's nothing wrong with self-publication. I did it with my books. That's okay. It is perfectly fine. If that's working for you and you're generating a lot of revenue doing it and you're just loving the freedom that comes with that, stick to it. Do it. Live in it, breathe it, endorse it, whatever it is you have to do. But being picked up by a major publisher is hella rewarding, and it's very satisfying, and it's heartbreaking if you don't quite achieve it. You know, if that's something you've put your mind on, you worked your ass off for a year and get like 5 manuscripts out there, and you're like, what the hell, people, like, pick me up. Then, yeah, your journey as a writer is very frustrating. Okay? I get it. Not everybody is meant to be a top 5 bestseller. And if you get there by being a self-published author, then by all freaking means, do it. Because that would show major publishers that, like, hey, I'm a self-published person, didn't get picked up by a major publisher, and I'm yielding 100% of the profit, or 98.9% of, the revenue from my creative work, which is what we love as creatives. The benefit of being picked up by a major publisher, obviously, is having that marketing network and that readership, with the major publications. One of my dreams is this. Like, this is one of my no bullshit, honest to God dreams, is to have one of my scripts or book ideas or, book of poetry be published by Disney. I've always wanted to contribute to Disney in some way. I mean, I'd love to be an Imagineer, but I know it's like a tight-knit, super community of geniuses that are, that create and do what they do. But, of course, my dream is to, contribute to that dream. Would I love to build my own dream and my own castle? Absolutely. I love building castles. I love building universes. That's my shit. But if you can help build somebody else's castle too, that has already saved lives and given back to millions and millions of people on this planet, then that's what I want to do too. Just to be involved in the enjoyment of children and young adults and even adults who embrace the product of what Disney produces. Another one of my dreams as a writer is to, have one of my plays, one of my scripts make it to the big screen and make it to the large Broadway theater. That is a hope and a dream. That is, every writer has these lofty goals. We have these dreams, these goals, these desires, shoot big, aim big, be big, and walk tall and carry a big stick. And that stick is your craft. That stick is your writing. if your your creative writing is a minute part of who you are and you're much bigger than that as a person, fantastic. Then you have other things you're trying to do and achieve. For those who writing is everything and you find yourself being short of your dreams and desires, embrace your community. Reach back out to the community at large, the writing community, and say, where am I falling short? What is going on with my creative process that might need an uptick? Seek out other authors and find out what valuable insight they can give back to you. And a lot of it, especially with young authors, and this is what I see all the time with those who are like me. When I was in college, when I got out of the Navy, I was 23. I was like, I'm a young aspiring author, and I want to write, and I want to publish, and I want X, Y, and Z, and these are my hopes and dreams. I got about a million story ideas, yada, yada, yada. And it took me 10 years to publish, like a book. It took me battling and getting rejection letters up the wazoo and, getting myself into those smaller publications. And that's my journey. That has been my journey. I still haven't finished a full-on manuscript, and that's one of my goals. I have these dreams and desires. I'll make them happen, but sometimes it takes longer than others, and that's okay. The game of life is a journey. It's not a contest. Yes, it's great to be in competition with other people. Great to be in competition with yourself and be a champion. But be a champion for yourself in life first. If writing for you is a serious endeavor, you've got to realize that you may have really short wins to win the whole game. You may have short gains, like running the ball on a football field, to ultimately get to the touchdown. Some people have a very successful play, and that gets them in the end zone early, but sometimes they never touch that end zone again, and life ends up winning the game. That's just how it happens. Okay? The way creative writing works and the way the publishing community works is it's a very somewhat hoity-toity community, in the sense that these major publishers are like, well, we're looking for those who meet the cut and what we expect. But that may not be the same for the publisher next door, right? And if you're a budding publisher and you're trying to get people's work out there and become a publisher of note and of merit, and you're taking chances on, authors who are, aspiring authors, and they're taking on the world at that point, then ride with them. They could end up being something very valuable to you as the publisher. So that's what I want to do. I want to take those raw workers, those raw, nitty-gritty, in the grind poets and creative writers and fiction writers, and be a stepping stone, be an achievement marker, and be a major contributor to your journey as an author. That's the only way we win, folks, is we have to embrace our writing community. We have to understand that, hey, like, we get to the point where we're authors and we're in that mode and we're being successful, and we can embrace that for a while. We can live in it. We'll have a set group of colleagues that we're very fond of and that we see as peers, and we'll see them as, hey, they wrote during my time, and people can end up writing for years, and there are people that are in their 70s and 80s still producing great work. So it's never too late to start. Obviously, Stan Lee, never too late to start. Never too late to jump into the game of writing. If you're listening to this podcast and you've been thinking for a long time about a book idea, and you may be that one person who creates this novel out of nowhere and saves the lives of countless children with your work. And we had that with R.L. Stine. He had written other things prior to Goosebumps, but Goosebumps was a really opportune thing, a very, very good format for him to not just be a conveyor of stories, but he saved so many kids from a life of illiteracy, a life of life without passion in the arts and creative writing. It is one of the reasons, as an older millennial, that my creative juices are the way they are, due to, R.L. Stine, Dean Koontz, growing up with films like Beetlejuice. I mean, growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s and all through the 90s was extremely profound for me. It was a time that I'll never forget. It's a time that I'll be hearkening back to for a long time. When I was living in it, yeah, did it suck? Did I go through the ringer a little bit? Sure. Do I find value even in the early 2000s and so on? Yes, I do. But we're heading on into we're almost in 2020. We're almost freaking there. And we're entering a new chapter of our lives for this year. It's a new year, new us. We need to get over that hump of not seeking help, the hump of, I'm dead set on, having certain people give me feedback, and that's it. And sometimes we have to take a chance. So here's what I did with my book. I wasn't getting the feedback that I want. I wasn't getting, my writing community was very closed, and I was like, okay, well, I need feedback on my book. So what I did was I ordered, oh my God, probably 50, 60 copies of my book. And I have a habit of ordering food. So every time I order food, I'd give them a tip, and I'd also give them a book. Say, hey, hey, read this. Leave me a, comment on Amazon. Let me know what you think. Please give me some feedback on my book. Let me know where I'm at. Let me know if, any of the stories resonated with you, etc., etc. And I finally had that feedback I'd been looking for. I would order again. I'd have the same girl or guy, and they'd be like, yo, your book, did this for me. I love this story. This is what worked, and this is what I didn't like. That feedback was amazing. It was valuable. So, am I going to continue to do that? No. But it was a very fun experiment for me. And once you have your work out there, you can do that. You can be creative with your own creativity. and it's fun once you have that book in your hand and you're holding one of your books. It is hella rewarding. Whether it's self-publication or whether it's going to be syndicated to the masses, which ultimately is what you're wanting to do, is touch the world. Sometimes we're slow to build momentum. Sometimes we're like a viral video and we take off. Both of which is okay. So just keep in mind that we as readers love you. We as writers love you. We want you to embrace your writing community. We want you to listen to Creatacast. Get the word out that I'm looking for submissions. Get the word out that creatives can flock to Creatacast to contribute and be a part of the show. I want to get back to where I read content. I want to get back to where I read poems. I want to read fiction. I want to read, whatever it is on the air. I do have a limited time for my show. I'm telling you guys, I'm committing to you guys that I'm going to, once I get paid, I'm going to buy the bigger platform for the show. For me, Speaker Studio has different levels that you can do, and it has different ways of reaching a broader audience with the more you pay into it, and that's okay. I'm going to do that for you guys. Could I use Anchor? Absolutely. But I think Speaker Studio is a very wonderful platform. It does what I need it to do, and give it a download. If you have an idea one day that you wanted to be a podcaster, do it. But if you're a creative writer, get in contact with me. Listen to my YouTube. Subscribe to, my Twitter. Follow me, But, again, I'm going to go ahead and sign off right here at the end of the Creatacast show. I love you guys. I love the writing community, and reach out to me. I can't wait for your submission. See you next Friday.